So many artists have come out of the Lower East Side, so many great writers, great musicians, great poets. It's really rich with creativity. I don't know. I think it was in the air, but it was my calling. It was my spirit. It still is my spirit to be creative. And I decided to pursue that and went through the whole journey of waitering and bartending and then finally getting a big break on Broadway.
Welcome to Career Cheat Code. In this podcast, you'll hear how everyday people impact the world through their careers. Learn about their journey, career hacks, and obstacles along the way. Whether you're already having the impact you want or are searching for it, this is the podcast for you.
All right. Antonio, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to share my story.
Absolutely. It's great to have folks like you over on Career Cheat Code, especially because you do so many great things that are beneficial to our communities. So let's just dive right in. Let's tell the world what it is you do for a living.
You know, I have a title, and I'm Director of Education and Career Services, and also for the Boys Club of New York, but also the founder of the Latino College Expo. But I always put all those titles under one umbrella, which is changing the lives of young people in the communities I serve.
That's amazing. So tell me more about your role at the Boys Club. What is it that you're tasked with doing there? And when you walk in on Monday, what is it that you're planning for the week and responsible for?
Yeah, it's interesting. The work I do, it starts even before I enter the office, as soon as I wake up, in many ways, because I check, emails and see if anything is needed by the parents that I work with and the families that I work with. But what I do, under that title, it's not limited to educational career services, but it is opening access and allowing families to understand how to navigate this journey of getting their child into a great high school and into a great college. And not so much a great, but their right match college, because it's not always about getting into because it has a name. It's about getting to the school that's the best match for your child's personality, for their interests, so they can have a better and greater chance of succeeding. We get caught up with names, but it's really more important the right match, because it's their journey for the next 4 years or 8 years or 10 years. So it's important to do that. And that's what I do. And I also try to connect them to other resources out there. We don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers, but I have quite a set of resources and relationships that I've built that I can communicate with them and also connect them to what else is out there that can help them.
So while these young men are at the Boys Club for many different reasons, right? Because you can be there for recreational purposes or other things. You're looking at it from the perspective of how do we now think about their futures while they're in this building? How do we prepare them and their families for high school, college, and kind of using both the network that you've now built over the last decades, right? But also just what you know about the youth. What do we know about these kids or young people to kind of make those matches?
Well, again, knowledge is power in many ways, understanding how to navigate, understanding that there are resources. I mean, especially around education, people get scared of a price tag, but understanding that there are ways to overcome that price tag. And there are so many options beyond the radius of where they live. There are other states that are looking for kids that look like them, and parents especially, to understand that it's an opportunity for your child. And if they've earned that opportunity, they should not hold them back. Not that they want to hold them back, but they're fearful. Don't let fear hold you back from trying to find better angles and better roads towards success. And if your child has earned it, why not? So a lot of it is inspirational. A lot of it is getting to know them, getting to know what their interests are, and trying then to connect those dots, because kids have interests and they don't even know it. But when you get to talk to them, they kind of share and reveal some of their talents and some of their passions. And then if we really click, then I would help them to really follow that passion in a roadmap that's really going to connect all the dots for them and also inspire them. And it's okay to fall. It's okay not to have made mistakes. It's okay to not be strong in math or English. We'll work with you and help you. And also trades. Over the years, I've gotten really much into talking to students about trade, because not everyone wants to go to an academic institution, and trades are booming. And they're great careers, very lucrative careers. And if their passion is with their hands and doing things around HVAC or plumbing, it's okay. And it's a great career, but know how to do it right, know how to get the right certification, know how to think beyond and become the owner of a company. So have that entrepreneurial spirit is what I also try to teach students. They have it naturally, but they don't know it sometimes.
Absolutely. And like you said, it's, providing some of that insight and knowledge and expanding their mind to possibilities, right? I know I've
Yeah.
spoken to teenagers. So I have a kid in college now. I've spoken to teenagers that are his peers, and they're like, I'm not applying to college. That's too expensive. My parents can't afford that. I'm like, wait a minute. How about you sit down with some folks that do this for a living and they can tell you about some options, right? Because I'm a fortunate product of services like this, right? Not the Boys Club directly, but services like that, of people that took the time out to say, well, let's explore some options for you. We're like, I know your parents don't have a lot of money saved up for college, but can we use your financial situation to secure some grants, to secure some financial aid, to get you to the right place that'll nurture your talents? So I try to like pass that down, but I feel like I relied so much on people like you growing up to help me jumpstart my career and get to the right place.
No, I agree totally. I don't want to be remiss not to talk about the expo and the Latino College Expo, because that's part of this journey as well, and what I offer. And having that idea to start this event 35 plus years ago was definitely monumental for me, but also for the thousands and thousands of kids that have attended the event. And that triggered through my work in admissions, where I was seeing parents not as versed in the process. But again, putting it in perspective, 35 years ago, parents have become more knowledgeable, but with the influx of immigration and language learners, it's still a not known entity for them, the idea of affording college. But the expo was a bridge with parents to become better partners with their child, bringing in different colleges that are bilingual in terms of their representation, so they can deliver the message, not only in English to the students, but also in Spanish to the parents. We forget to feel that without the parents' support, it's not going to happen. And I really want to focus on bringing a partnership that's really going to benefit them and the community they live in.
Absolutely. So we'll definitely spend some time talking about the College Expo, because I think that it all ties in, and it all, as you said, it's one umbrella, right? It's just who you are and the work that you're doing to shape people's lives. We'd love to hear more about, within the Boys Club, one, how long have you been there? And two, was your starting role the same role where you are now? Like, what does that look like? And I'm thinking about it from the perspective of, you have a very mission aligned career, right? And that's not always the case for us. It's like sometimes we have to figure out community impact outside of our work lives, but that's not your case. It seems very mission aligned. So we'd love to hear more about how you started in this path, and then we can talk about the Career Expo there.
Sure. I mean, as far as the Boys Club, I mean, I was a product of the Boys Club when I was a teenager, and I had the opportunity to go there when I was about 11 or 12, a little later than most kids, but it was the time that I was allowed to go by my parents. But it was pivotal for me to go there to help me to have a safe haven. So I know the impact of what that offers, just being in a safe environment where you can actually learn, expand, meet friends, and not have your parents worry about you being in the streets. That kind of morphed into going away to school, going away to boarding school, actually, which that was my pivotal moment for me. And then years later, going on to college and then coming back to the Boys Club to work in the position and in the program that helped me to go away. It was a no-brainer for me. It was like full circle for me. I said, wow, I can do what somebody else did for me to help them get out of the city and go away to these expensive schools that you have so many opportunities. And now I'm in the role of making that decision and changing a student's life. I just jumped on it. It was more personal than actually, business or just moving up the ladder and going into a different career, which I've had a different career before that, which hopefully I can share. But so I've been there, since then, and I was the director of high school and college placement. It morphed a little bit into educational and career services. But, to me, titles don't mean anything. Honestly, you really, really don't. It's the impact of the work. But the work and the impact of the work is around helping and elevating the educational aspirations of our young people and bridging the gap between parents and young people working together to get to the next level, and bringing resources and connecting them to alumni that have succeeded so they can see and hear stories of people that look like them. So I really am holistic in my approach. There are bullet points, applications, essay prep, test prep, bringing in schools for interviews, taking them to a school, visiting them, writing them emails, talking to the parents to navigate the financial aid process, advocating if they got in trouble, if they went away to a school or are adjusting to college and having challenges. all of that falls under my umbrella. So it is practical, but it's also holistic because we are human beings at the end of the day and have our own stories. And each of us are in a different place. And I try to really connect to where they are to help them get to where they need to be or want to be.
Wow. So it sounds like not only is your role rewarding, it's also a full circle moment, right? Like you were a beneficiary of this program to then come back and say, you know what, how do I now help others achieve that path? And to then fall in love with it, right? Like you have to love doing that if you're there, over 20 years later. So would love to hear more about, one, where did you grow up that you were going to the boys club? Where'd you end up going to college that you went away for a while and come back? So let's talk about some of your upbringing.
Well, I was born and raised in the Lower East Side of New York, and I'm very proud to be a New Yorican from the Lower East Side. And as my partner calls me, Puerto Rican preppy from the Lower East Side. And I say that because, I'm Puerto Rican. I went to prep school, but I also am from the Lower East Side. So I always tell kids, never forget where you came from. So I grew up in the Lower East Side. It was a very interesting neighborhood back in the 70s when I grew up. I loved it. Well, had its danger points like most urban cities have. That era, though, was critically dangerous and really, really affected a lot of young people if they weren't strong enough or had some place to go. And for me, fortunately, I had a place called the Boys Club at the time. But it was a creative environment full of many artists and many poets and many writers. And I didn't really understand that until as I got older and realized the magic that was occurring in that neighborhood. Places that struggle, art is a way of getting out of that struggle. It's a way of expressing that struggle. And I didn't realize that until later on. But I'm very happy to have been born and raised in the Lower East Side and then going to the Boys Club, having the chance to go away to boarding school in Providence, Rhode Island. Who would have thought of it? But my parents felt that it was important for me to get out. I was a good young man, but when you're around a lot of these landmines, you just might step into the wrong time at the wrong place and something could happen, even though you're a good person. So, but they saw that and I didn't know that. I just said, wow, I'm going away to school. Did I do something bad? No, I think they, to their credit, they saw the future and didn't want that future to be derailed in any way for me. And then from there, I had a great career in prep school, adjusted very well, succeeded in a lot of leadership roles there. And then I went to college, which was inevitable. I went to Syracuse. The college guidance that I use now with our young people, I didn't have it then. I mean, I enjoyed my time at Syracuse, but I also, got into Middlebury, got into BU. Middlebury would have been a nice, small liberal arts school, but I went to Syracuse. And I think, like most kids, I went to Syracuse because they were in the Final Four the year before. So I was like, okay, I want to go there. But I don't think now, as I talk to kids, that's not a reason to pick a college. But again, made some great friends, great school, would never change. I would never change anything in my life's journey. Everything was meant to be because that's the way it was laid out for me. So yeah, and then after college, I came back to New York and wanted to be an actor.
Oh,
yeah.
Did that start within your college career, or was that something that you had while you were in the Lower East Side and off to boarding school? Like, did you always have in your mind, like, I just want to be an actor?
When I think about it, now that you mentioned that, I was very involved in creativity in high school. Did West Side Story, did some poetry and all of that. Very influenced by some of the writers, New York City writers that I would pick up their books at a library and say, wow, Latino, and he wrote this book. And then in college, I got involved in a lot of theater projects. I think it was a calling, but I didn't know that a lot of it was probably embedded into me from growing up where I grew up and being I think it was in the air. So many artists have come out of the Lower East Side, so many great writers, great musicians, great poets. It's really rich with creativity. I don't know. I think it was in the air, but it was my calling. It was my spirit. It still is my spirit to be creative. And I decided to pursue that and went through the whole journey of waitering and bartending, and then finally getting a big break on Broadway with a play about the Lower East Side, ironically, called Cuba and His Teddy Bear. And it was the person who wrote it, someone I knew, and he was the second Puerto Rican ever in the history of theater to be produced on Broadway. And he got Robert De Niro to be in it, and Burt Young, Ralph Macchio. It was quite a journey. I always tell kids, yesterday I was sharing some stories, went to a party and danced with Madonna. I was like, wow, I'm dancing with Madonna. But again, that was my journey at that time. And then it shifted. And ironically, it's because of the Boys Club in many ways. I was pursuing that career, had a little girl, needed to really get a little bit more steady in my life. And he offered me or wanted to nominate me for a job to work in admissions at a school called SUNY Purchase, which, for those who don't know, is a state university with a conservatory school of the arts, one of the best schools out there for a state university and in the country for performing and visual arts. Again, the right match for me as I was looking to transition. And then I was there and I got to be an adjunct faculty in theater, worked in admissions, and started really creating programs. So still, creativity is always around you. You don't have to be creative because you're an actor or a singer or a musician. You can be creative as a professional administrator, as a business person, as a doctor. I mean, creativity is very important in everything we do. Yourself creating this podcast is a form of creativity to express, and share to the people out there. And I did that at SUNY Purchase, and that was just the right match. And I created many programs, and that's when I had the idea to do the Latino College Expo. That's something happened during my journeys in admissions that triggered the idea I need to do something. And I took the chance to do it. I still worked, but I had this passion to create this event, and it blossomed. It blossomed.
Wow. So you're this young man from the Lower East Side, figuring life out after college, doing some waitering, all the things you need to do to pursue your dreams at the time. And you actually get to act on Broadway, which also is not something to overlook, right? Like, it's one thing to say, at some point, I want to be an actor. It's another thing to actually do the thing, right? Like, you have actually done the things that you have put into the universe. I think one would love to hear about kind of your experience on Broadway and how kind of learnings that you got from it and how that helped shape you. And then two, I know you mentioned, it sounds like you had a daughter at the time that then sparked some thoughts into your head about getting some stable income. But, we'd love to hear a little bit more about that process, because that's a very unique path.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't just get to Broadway. I did some off Broadway, did some commercials, and then had the chance to get on Broadway. It wasn't an easy journey. And when I first auditioned for the play, I made the wrong choice. So again, making choices is important. I made the wrong choice in terms of some of the choices I made when I auditioned. If I would have twisted a little bit, but again, so I didn't get the actual part. I got on as an understudy. Then when we went to Broadway, I took over the role. So you have to be an understudy before you get the role if you don't get the role right away. And that was a business. Because when you become an understudy, that doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to go on to Broadway when they start moving from off Broadway to Broadway. They want to make sure it's a business that you can carry your weight for if that opportunity happens, and you have to play the role that you're going to do well enough, to keep it on that level, especially with the actors that were leading the show, Bobby and Bert and Ralphie and many others. Paul Calderon. But I was taken to Broadway as an understudy, and I took over. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot that I apply now. I learned about being committed. I learned about being truthful. I learned about my mantra, being creative, being passionate, being creative, being truthful. As an actor, you have to communicate. As an actor, you have to connect to the audience, not only in their head, but in their heart. And you have to really listen, and you have to really give, and you have to be able to take back. These are all things of life. And I studied with De Niro, but being on there with him and watching the energy just transmit from his body. And this is different than a movie. Theater is real life. Theater is happening right there. You're looking at it, you're feeling his heat, you're feeling his laughter, you're looking at each other. It's tremendous, a tremendous feeling. But to bring that into this career that I do now, it's still relevant. You have to communicate with families. You have to communicate with kids. You have to communicate with school officials. You have to really be honest, and you have to really tell your story and advocate. But you really have to also be passionate and be creative to be like Latino College Expo came out of creativity. I could have sat there and just introduced my school, go to all these different events. But I had a different calling or a different thought process in my head that I need to do something bigger than that. I need to really make a bigger impact. This is important, not just for the school, but for the Latino community at the time and just all young people. And sometimes you have to follow it. You have to take that leap, and you have to be creative. And I think theater is the same. Theater is the same way. You have to take that leap, take a chance. A funny story. I did the show one day, and it was De Niro's birthday. So I come in on the scene, I knock on the door, his back is to the audience, and then he lets me in, and I'm saying, who is he? I said, Happy, because the thing is Red Lights was my character, but I changed it that day. Why? Because that was his birthday. So I said, Happy, it's Happy. He said, who? Happy. And he opened the door, happy birthday, and no one knew what that all meant. Only he and I and somebody, but he looked at me because his back is to the audience. He just gave me a little smirk. You got me there, because he loves improvisation, So I improvised, but it added a little different element. But I think that's so wonderful to try to improvise and try to find new ways to keep things fresh. And as a business person, you can understand that. As a creative, you definitely have to understand that. And as an admissions person, you definitely have to understand that as well. I've done seminars since then and workshops with admissions people to bring some of those approaches to the work of creativity and acting into the work of admissions, because you are dealing with people. So I really combine both. But my foundation, I call myself a creative educator, not just an educator, but a creative educator.
That's great. And that, I think that term really embodies who you are, right? From all I know about you, it's like, I'm going to take all the pieces from the different walks of my life and bring them together for the impact that I'm trying to have here for the youth that you're committed to. I love that term. Would like to hear more about, now that you're working at SUNY Purchase, what is the moment that happens that lets you know, sure, I'll keep my role at SUNY Purchase or continue to work in this field, and there's a need for this Latino College Expo? Tell me more about that, Pat.
Well, being one of the only Latino administrators, which is still kind of like that, a lot better now. But at the time, I really gravitated to the Latino students on campus and all students of color on campus, or, Black and brown kids on campus. And I became an advisor to, a Latino organization. They wanted to do a play. When they heard my background, I actually helped them put together a great performance that I still have a video of it because I did the opening monologue, and they were like, man, Mr. Aponte, you really know how to act. It was really funny. But being creative, I also saw a need. There's a program called EOP, HEOP, Higher Education Opportunity Program, where in order to get into that program, you have to fit a financial guideline and an academic guideline. So during that time when I would go, I would see kids that fit the academic guideline, but not the financial. So they were in this catch-22. I can't get in academically. I can't get in financially. How am I going to get in? So I approached the dean of academic affairs with an idea. Let's start a program where students who are academically not eligible and financially not eligible, a chance, and a handful, about 10 kids. And let me work with them. Let me guide them and advocate how they can navigate the resources on the campus, because they don't realize you don't have to be part of a special program. There are many support services on campus. Again, you have to know how to navigate. And he said yes, because it helped to build numbers. And we did. I had 10, 9 came back. And eventually, by the time I left, I had 150 kids in the program. But I gave chances to some kids that are excelling today, that even, and one in particular that I always talk about, his name is, and I'm sure, Anthony Goenaga. I always talk about him. Those that know me say, oh, again, you're talking about Anthony, but Anthony really depicts the work and the importance. He had a 75 average. I took him into the program. He wanted to be a bio major. He wanted to be a trainer. At the time, the New York Knicks were training at the facility. I went and I connected him to the trainer then to provide an internship for him. He got the internship. He ran with that internship. He folded towels for the first, 4 years while being a bio pre-med major. But he also gained the trust of the Knicks staff, coming there every day, committed to what he had to do, went on and got his doctorate and master's in physical therapy. Anyway, he is the doctor of the New York Knicks for training. He is the main doctor. He's been with them like 25, 30 years, but he started at 17 as an intern. And he's so successful and so indicative of giving someone a chance. And I have thousands of stories like that. And he came back and spoke to some of my kids about the value of internships, to understand if this is something you want to do in life. Really don't disregard doing an internship if you're not getting paid. It's all about getting experience and all about exploring whether this is something you see yourself doing down the line. So he's tremendous. Luis Rosero, another great person, accepted through my program, who's on the board of Hispanic Federation, doing really well, financially and career-wise. And these guys always remember that pivotal moment that they had with me. And I feel really good. I really get excited about all the young people I've helped over the years. I can go on and write a book just on all these people that really display how important getting that pivotal moment in your life can do for your trajectory of your future.
No, absolutely. So I'm sure you have so many more of these folks that are like just prime examples of the great work. Tell me more about how do you then grow this from a one-time program for 10 students to just help them, right? To what it is now, right? Like this is now 30 years later?
Yeah. I mean, I don't do the program now. I mean, I'm not there anymore. And the program has evolved and morphed into something else. But at the time, it was the original idea and concept that really was a springboard to what they do now.
Interesting. So you're doing that and you're having that impact within the campus. And then you go off and say, you know what, I also am going to host this college expo too, as you said earlier, to then bring in also the parents, get them a little bit more involved. Like what,
right.
How do those pieces come together? How do you go from just doing the work internally for a subset to then saying, I also need to do much more?
Well, you have to have passion, first of all. And the expo evolved by going to college fairs as a representative for the college I was working at and seeing students not ask the right questions, seeing parents not as invested or unaware and really holding them back. And one evening, driving back after I spoke to a young lady with her mom in the Bronx, SUNY Purchase is in Westchester, literally a half hour away, if you take the Beeline bus or the Metro North, and mother saying, no, you can't go, you can't apply, it's too far. And I was like, wait a minute, Mom, this is closer than her going to SUNY Binghamton or something like that, I was driving back with a colleague from another institution, and we were just talking, a Latino male, and together we just said, let's try to do something. And we said, and it's really funny, we just said, let's call it Latino College Expo. It was on a drive home. And they said, well, let's call other colleges then. Let's call and try to find a space to do a college fair, making sure that most of the college admissions people are bilingual, offering some workshops to explain the basic financial aid process and how to fill out an application. And let's see where it goes, and do it on a Saturday so there's less red tape with getting kids out of school. And first time I had maybe like 30 colleges and maybe about 350 kids, but we did it.
That's
Kept doing it every year. But it is for the first time. I mean, that's not bad, but it grew at its peak because things have changed recently in this whole landscape. But at its peak, I would get about 150 colleges, about 1,500 to 2,000 kids coming. And I had some of the greatest speakers that you can imagine come and offer their time to speak to the students in the opening leadership summit, which my partner helped me to really evolve that even greater. And then, I got to give props to, Tiempo, the talk show on Channel 7, Mr. Joe Torres, who's had me on his show for over 20 years or close to 20 years. And 2 years ago, they celebrated their 40th, and he even put me on and said, this is Antonio, who I've known him since we both didn't have hair. Or he had black hair, now he has gray hair, and I have no hair. But we've known each other to become friends. But people like that have supported the visibility, El Diario, AM New York, the Mercado Project. They've supported. I've gotten a lot of support. Now, it's been challenging the last few years. The landscape has changed, after COVID, a lot of virtual college fairs have popped up. That personal touch is not there as much. Also, the landscape with immigration has caused some fear with us, our young families and kids, my last expo last year that it was good, but it wasn't, I felt the little gap. And I think there was the fear of what's going on in this world today. And so I'm reevaluating the next one in 2026. I don't want to stop. I will keep doing it. Is it going to be a virtual event? Is it going to be a live event? I still have some time to figure that out. I'm going to speak to some of my colleagues and people that have supported me and figure this out. If I do it in a virtual method, I really want to get a good platform, get the sponsorship I need to create a really robust platform where it almost feels like you're there in person. I know in person is always best, but I think if my vision comes together, I will have a powerful virtual platform that'll still educate everyone, provide, and I can always work with them individually afterwards. But I want to keep going with the mission of the Latino College Expo. It's really taught me everything I am today. It's really been embedded into my DNA and who I am. It really set me up as a leader, much more than all the other work I've done, because the expo was expanded. I've had calls from people to do it in other states. Other people have replicated it, like in California, in Miami, in Florida. And that's okay. That's a testament to the work. Yeah, I feel really proud that I again, being creative, that I took that leap to do something. And you never know unless you try, as an old adage. But that's kind of how I approach life now as I get to my years of going to my third chapter, more consulting and events planning.
Yeah, no. So you see, I think this is so powerful, right? Because you already had an impactful role within a university, right? You're a SUNY Purchase. You're helping students like myself that went through HEOP or EOP, right? You're providing so much access to things. Somewhere in your brain, you go to so many college fairs all the time and you're like, actually, why don't we just host one for the kids that we want to support, right? And like to then go from that kernel of an idea to the first year already having 350 people there, over 30 colleges. Like that's really powerful, right? And then to build on that year after year, like we're talking about thousands of students, families that have been impacted by your work and that are able to trace a direct line. And I'm sure a lot of these stories, you may not even know how that impacted them, right? Like even, like even just that person of, oh, SUNY Purchase is so far from the Bronx. And you're like, it's 30 minutes. Like you can go to St. John's and travel longer and that's in the city, right? You can go to Brooklyn for college and that's further. But just that like expanding and giving some of that knowledge away is just extremely powerful. And I'm sure your work has had so many ripple effects throughout our communities in a way that.
Well, it's interesting. That young girl did go to SUNY Purchase. That young girl is now, a mother and has her MSW. And I saw her about maybe like 6 months ago at an event at the Museo del Barrio. And she ran. She saw me. She knew I was there. Tony, because people that have known me for a long time, and now it's not Mr. Aponte. I mean, she's an adult. Tony, oh my God. And I said, Doris, oh my God, how are you doing? And it's really, I don't even have words that can express the feelings I feel and how proud I am that my calling has been the work that I do today.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fascinating. I think it's such a blessing and it's something that not many people get to realize within their lifetime. And I think you've done that multiple times over, right? Like you're like, hey, I want to be an actor. You're an actor. I want to help the youth. You did that both through your career at SUNY Purchase, then at the Boys Club, and continue to do that work. And then you go above and beyond and say, well, I still want to do more. So let me do things like this Latino College Expo and help even more families get the right resources, just understand information better, know their options, and just let them do with that information what they will. But at least they won't make decisions without information. So it's like extremely powerful and extremely, just life-changing to have people like you that go above and beyond their 9 to 5.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just one of many. Thank God there are a lot of people doing this work, a lot of my colleagues, a lot of other organizations that I've spearheaded or supported or mentored or offered best practices or inspired to do the same thing. So I think, it's really snowballed into a movement in many ways. Back in the day, Aspira was the organization that provided for our Latino community. Now you have, Hispanic Federation is one of the largest ones out there. The Expo is still a small kid on the block, but a very impactful small kid on the block that really did it with passion and with creativity and with truth.
What are you most proud of in your career?
Well, probably the Expo. I think the Expo, being on Broadway with Robert De Niro, is like a dream come true. Just to work every day and seeing lives that have been changed and they say, thanks, Mr. Aponte, for helping me. And at that time, I mean, they've taken it to a greater heights, but you always need that pivotal moment. You always need that start. And to be the start of someone's, seeing that there's more out there in this world, I think is one of the greatest moments, and trying to be a good father. And, I made my mistakes. It's hard being a single father, but at least I stayed there. And whether she sees it or not, I think as she gets older, she'll see it. But I've been there and it will never leave her and always will do my best to support her in her journeys.
Great. Are there any forms of media, and that could be a play, that could be a book, that could be anything else that you have consumed that has shaped you personally or professionally?
Yeah, I mean, I like looking at books. I like reading books. I love theater, and the message that it can share if it's well written. But I think some books I say pivotal moments a lot during our conversation, but that is a book by Roberto Espinosa, And that really triggered a lot for me because it made me realize, that I create pivotal moments for kids and for young people and for people I meet, and that a pivotal moment can really change your life. And everyone, if they really think, has had a pivotal moment, whether it's their basketball coach, the school counselor, their parent, someone was that moment that was pivotal in their lives. So that's one book. Another book, It Starts With Why by Simon Sinek. I love that. I love what he says. It's not what you do, it's not how you do it, it's why you do it. And that why is so important in the work that we do, because everyone does this work, but why? That's how you sell it. That's how you connect it, because if they understand the why, it takes on a greater importance. And then this other book that I really like, it's called The Creative Act by Rick Rubin, the musician and producer. And he really touches upon so many things, again, combining creativity with education, with realization, with purpose. And I think that book has also been very, very good to me and continues to invigorate the work that I do. And I look at it from a creative lens. Everything I do, I'm not a textbook guy who is saying, the metrics show. I'm about connecting and really, really seeing if there's 2,000 in my best approach, every single one approach and support them as the individual they are. And that's a lot of work. But I think when you develop something and you know how to do it and it's innate in your DNA and in your spirit, I think it just happens naturally. I think I've been gifted with that and have that I don't want to get into spiritual, but that spiritual connection that I have. I'm Latino, so we're going to grow up with some spirituality, but I do believe in really connecting with a person's soul and listening to their needs and goals and trying to help them.
So you've had so many different kind of careers. At each point, can you talk a little bit about how much money folks can make in different fields, right? So in the acting space, I know that was one of the determining factors for you to then go back to getting a full-time role, right? But kind of just give folks a sense of, at that time, how much money people can make in that field. And then through the work that you're doing in direct services with something like the Boys Club, right? And then as someone that has your own organization with the Latino College Expo, how do these pieces come together?
Ooh, it's a lot there. Being an actor, you have to have that passion, right? Being an actor is the highs are high and the lows are low. Someone told me, and you have to you have to persevere. You have to be persistent. You have to have some talent. That's not good enough, but you do have to have some talent. I mean, you have to just follow your heart, man. If you really want to be an actor or a musician or an artist, follow it. I'm never going to turn anyone down, but just be strategic and work hard and understand that the highs are high and the lows are low. And you always have to learn. You always have to continue to grow as a performer and learn the tools and learn from some of the greats and always be out there. Always audition. You learn always. I did a play. I auditioned for a play. I didn't get the part, but the director remembered me. And then there was another play 3 months down the line. I got a call, hey, you auditioned you weren't right for the role, but I remember you had a really good audition. Would you like to come in and audition for this part? And so always leave a good impression, but just understand, also, just understand that if this is the path you choose, then go for it. One of the reasons I stepped out was not because I wasn't succeeding or I wasn't on the cusp of maybe. You have to be very selfish as an actor. I just had my little girl and I had her by myself, so it was a lot more work. And I knew there was a calling maybe to do the work that I'm doing now. And I knew there was something still not satisfying me. And there's the art of acting. This is the business of acting, understanding both. So I can't say how much you make. Yeah, you can hit it big and make really good money. But you can also be struggling along the road. But you got to be persistent and know when to step out if you have to, but also just stay persistent. In terms of admissions work, that's not something, while now they do have a lot of courses and a lot of certificate programs, I think, you can explore it as a young person by volunteering, at your college with the admissions office, giving tours. There are different levels depending where you work. You don't become an admissions or dean of enrollment right away. You have to be patient. A young person, you have to be patient and grow. You have to start as an admissions counselor, work your way up, maybe become associate, maybe become senior, and then maybe become dean or dean of enrollment or director of admissions. There are many, you work for city university, for state university, for private institutions. Independent schools, you can work at a private school, you can work at a charter school. They all have different levels, but just, again, you have to stick with it. I think there's a great growth growth path in that field, but you have to stick with it. You have to understand that it's a process, that it's a marathon and not a sprint. I tell that a lot to a lot of young people. It's a marathon and not a sprint. And understand that. And you have to have that willingness to get out of your comfort zone and meet people and connect and learn. Always be a learner. Always be a sponge. And I think if you dedicate and you show your work ethic, so there's going to be highs during especially the academic season, where you're working days, nights, weekends, but it all settles in later after you've met your class. But if you like it, if you really want to do it, just meet, learn, and connect. There are a lot of organizations out there. College Access Consortium of New York is one that I believe in very much. I was a founding member of that, and it's a great network for anyone interested in college access. There are a lot of ways. You just have to really be out there and be a student of the game. But you can make a good living. And if you work in an independent school, you can live on campus for free. That's always a wonderful first job. It can lead to a career. But when you're young, and not pay for rent, not pay for gas, electricity, maybe have your family or your significant other with you, get your graduate degree paid for. I think it's a great start for someone, and then see where life takes you after that. That's my answer to that.
Absolutely. No, those are some really good career cheat codes there, right? Especially if you think about having a role early on in your career that gives you free education. That was something I definitely took advantage of, and that's how I have a master's degree now, right? Thinking about a place that gives you free housing, right? Like that's an opportunity to cut your biggest expense normally and save that money and set your family up for the future. So those are some really good points that you mentioned there. You are a very layered individual, and you have so many kind of pieces that may seem disconnected to others, but you bring them together really well. I really like the frame, a creative educator, because I do think bringing that creativity to all of your spaces is important, right? Like, I don't think we're all linear. And even if we're an accountant and that's what we do, there are creative ways to do that. There are creative things that you can bring out into the world that make you just better at what you do, or separate outlets that at least kind of bring the full person together. So I appreciate you sharing all of that. How can people support the Latino College Expo or learn about it?
Well, they can go to our website. Obviously, when I do promote, just continue to check the website, and I'll have more updates on when the next one's going to be. I think, I do a lot of workshops, so I'll try to do a lot of virtual, panelists to have people like yourself share their story, offering time, though I do have quite a resource of people over the years that I've helped. I can always use more. Obviously, we're 501c3, but we're still growing. I just keep keep supporting it. If you're an educator and work in a high school, support it within your schools to attend any of the events we do in person or virtual. If you're in a high school, come and seek out the work of myself and others out there to help navigate their journey to have that opportunity to make an opportunity of a private school affordable, if that's what you choose, or if you're looking at staying local with public or charter, seek out our help and my help to navigate that journey. There's nothing I haven't seen over the years. And I don't care if you have a 60 average or 98 average, I will find a home for you. So don't feel, I'm not doing well in school, I can't go to college. No, that is so untrue. You just have to want it. And then there are people like me, but if not, you can just reach out to me and I will help you to navigate a roadmap, a game plan to get to where you want to be. At the end, you have to carry it out, but I will provide a script, to use the term, and you have to bring your individuality to the script. But at least you'll have a script to follow, that if you work hard to learn the lines, to inject your own personality into it, you will succeed.
Is there anything else we haven't discussed that the world should know about Antonio?
Antonio loves movies. Antonio loves live salsa music. Antonio loves animals. Antonio likes to embrace life. And Antonio likes to help anyone that asks for help if it's possible. If not, then I will lead you to someone else that can. And Antonio is very, very blessed to his parents in heaven and to the people I've gotten to know, and now you in my circles that I've gotten to know. So thank you to you and to the world.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for coming on Career Chico today.
Thank you for having me. I really, I was honored when you called, and and excited that we completed this conversation. And I hope that when it does air, that people can, try to read between the lines and try to maybe capture what I was trying to say. I hope they get it.
Absolutely.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did and believe on the mission we're on, please like, rate, and subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you're using, and share this podcast with your friends in your networks. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn at Career Cheat Code, and tell us people or careers you would like to see highlighted. See you next week with some more cheat codes. Peace.